Welcome to the Calvary Briefing. It is April 28th, 2020. What is God doing? I think about that question a lot, and there seems to be a little bit of time to think about that question these days. And the Bible's a lot of help when we look at some of the big events of history and see what God is all about and what God is doing. I think of Genesis 6 through 8. There was a flood, and most of the world was destroyed. And the reason was that there was so much evil in the world that God wanted to start over, as it were. At the end of Genesis, there's a big worldwide famine. And God uses this event to show his sovereign care for people, and he shows how he is able to save. And you think about some of these big events, and you can see that God has purposes in them. Well, as we find ourselves in this pandemic, I listened to another briefing a couple of weeks ago given by Albert Mohler of Southwestern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. And Mohler used an article by Robin George Andrews to point out the scope of what is happening in our world these days. And the article is entitled, "Life's Pulsating Beat is Now a Murmur on the World's Seismographs." Many of you know what a seismograph is. It's an instrument that measures activity on the Earth's surface, and usually the only time we care about a seismograph is when there's some sort of an earthquake. Well, around the world, seismographs are detecting quiet. There are some amazing things happening. In London, noise is down a full 30%. There is now no morning rush. There is a morning quiet. In Scotland at King's College, because the students have all gone home, the seismograph there indicates that there is a 60% decrease in noise. In Nepal, they're able to detect all kinds of things on the surface of the earth because the pitter-patter of the feet of children is not there anymore because there aren't any children going to school. Well, as you think about the quiet on the surface of the earth because of this pandemic and because of all of the self-quarantine, you should also know that this isn't the way God intended it. Because factories aren't working, because there aren't football games and basketball games, because there is not school, because there is not the pitter-patter of little feet, it means that people are not fully engaged in the creation as God intended them to be. Well, back to the question, what is God doing? God's doing something amazing outside of my office window. As some of you may know, my main study office is in my home. And I have a beautiful window that faces my neighborhood. And there's something happening in my neighborhood that I've never seen before. There are 3 houses that are in my line of vision, and all 3 houses have quite a number of kids that are elementary age and younger. And in these houses, I've watched these kids for several years. But I'm seeing something that I haven't seen before. I'm seeing 3 dads who are out almost every day of the week. Out in the street in front of my house, lacrosse is being played. Out in front of my house, I see kids kicking around a soccer ball with their dad. There's even one of the boys in our neighborhood who has learned to ride a bike in just the last couple of weeks. There are dads out with their kids for hours. And it's something that I've never seen in my neighborhood. As I was thinking about this, I was drawn to the last verse of the Old Testament. It's the book of Malachi. And at the end of Malachi, we read these words. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes. And he will turn the hearts of the fathers to their children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strip the land with a decree of utter destruction. Malachi 4:6. Well, I did a little checking, and I found that Malachi 4:6 is partially quoted in the New Testament. In the first chapter of Luke, we find that Luke writes these words, speaking of John the Baptist, and he will turn many of the children of Israel to the Lord their God, and he will go before him in the spirit and power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the father to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready for the Lord a people prepared. What in the world is God doing? By silencing the world, by putting fathers and mothers in their homes with their children in an unprecedented way, is God turning the hearts of fathers to children and children to fathers? Is God preparing the way for a unique preparation to hear more and more about Jesus? Do you remember what happened when John the Baptist helped to turn the hearts of fathers to their children and children to their fathers? People heard the message of Jesus and turned to him. What is God doing? I wonder and I pray, and I hope you do as well.